Welcome back to the It'll Do Homestead. Today's going to be part 3 of the tiny feed shed build. So I purchased some 2x4 studs. I'm hoping I can get a couple walls framed out and some of the plywood sheathing put on today. Now, by no means am I a framing carpenter. I'm not even sure what you call the components of a wall. I'm going to call it a bottom plate and a top plate, and they're attached together with the studs. Normally you'd build that on your foundation and you'd stand it up. But in this case, the walls are about twice as tall as the foundation is wide, so it's not going to fit on here very well. Now, if you remember from the last video, I attached the subfloor on before I attached these L brackets that I bought. I bought 6 of these. What I want to do is attach them to the inside of this 2x6 and to the top of the 4x4 runner. I want to have 3 on each side, make it more sturdy, hold everything together in case for some reason in the future I need to pull it and move it to a different location. Now, my dog Charlie, she's busy sunning herself over there, so she's not going to be able to give me a hand with this. Hey Charlie, how's that sun feeling? I'm going to move these 4x4 skids out of the way and attempt to stand this foundation up on its side. Remember, the key word is attempt. Well, actually, that wasn't as heavy as I thought it was. So let me flip this 4x4 skid over to the correct orientation. I'm going to make it flush with the back wall. Then I'll attach these corner brackets. So I'll be using 4 of these 1 1/4 inch lag screws through each corner bracket. We may have a problem. I'm not going to be able to get that drill down in there to get to those 2 lag screws going into the 4x4 skid. So I'm going to have to give me a ratchet or a wrench and get down here so I have enough room to screw them in. Guess we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So I'll repeat this process on the last 2 corner brackets. Then I'll flip it over on the other side and attach these 3 corner brackets. All right, that finished up this side. All right, let's see what we can do to get these 3 corner brackets attached. That definitely would have been easier to put those brackets on before the subfloor. But I guess it'll do. Well, I've got a very small budget for this tiny feed shed build. That's one of the reasons I'm designing the size around the plywood that I already have. I'm also going to put the studs 24 inches on center, but if I don't think that's adequate enough, I'll go ahead and stick a few more in there. So with the wall studs being spaced about 24 inches on center, I'm only going to need 5 studs per each long side. And if I've estimated correctly, I believe they need to be 79 3/4 inches long. At that size, the plywood ought to reach from the bottom to the top of the top plate. I'll get all 5 of these measured out, then I'll cut them to size. So if you didn't catch the last video about the tiny feed shed build, I've got several half sheets of plywood. They're not exactly half sheets, but they're pretty close to it. I'm trying to reuse those on this tiny feed shed without making any cuts on them. So I'm making the walls and the floors to the size that'll accommodate the sheet of the plywood. Or at least that's my intent. So now I've got the top and bottom plate cut, as well as all the studs. Let's see if we can't get some of them put together. See how this first wall turns out. The wall studs are going to be about 23 5/8 on center. As I mentioned earlier, if that's not beefy enough, I'll go ahead and throw a few extra studs in there. I'm hoping the plywood, when I lay it on the walls, that will strengthen everything up. Got to be careful to leave these laying in the same direction. Don't want to flip it around, it might not line up. So I'm using 3.5-inch wood screws on the wall studs. Right, I think I'm going to try to move this over to the foundation now. This might be a little heavy for me to pick up, but let me grab that screw gun and tack this down, see if I can't get the wall squared up. You might notice that the plywood hangs over a little bit right here. That was the part I struggled with, trying to get the length of the studs the correct dimension. When I stand this wall up, I wanted to overhang the sill plate a little bit, approximately 4 inches. Let's screw down a few more pieces of plywood, then we'll stand it up. camera real quick. I want to walk around this before I try to stand it up. So as I mentioned, on the bottom of the wall there's going to be about a 4-inch overhang. It's going to cover up the seal plate. Everything appears to have lined up perfect. Knock on wood. So with that being said, let's see if I got enough in me to stand this wall up. I'm concerned that I don't have enough room to back up with that wall if I run into the fence. Can somebody reach down there and hand me that screw gun real quick? Thank you. Hopefully that'll stay there for just a minute. I'm going to walk around and line it, be sure it's lined up. And I'll put some 3.5-inch screws in that bottom plate. Now I'm going to switch back to 2-inch screws and attach this overhang on the plywood to that seal plate. I've still got to go back and finish screwing off this plywood sheathing, but I'm going to have to get a ladder. I can't reach them way up there. But don't that look kind of peculiar? It's a whole lot taller than it is wide. I'm going to go ahead and frame up another wall, another long wall, see if I can't get it put up. Got the bottom plate on, switch sides and put the top plate on. One of these days I'm going to have to invest in a pneumatic nail gun, but today's not the day. Since the floor of the tiny shed has already got a wall on it, there's no room to lay this wall up there and sheathe it. Even if I was to go ahead and sheathe the wall, there's no way I could pick it up from the ground. to set it up there. It's just too high in the back. So the other wall's going up just like it is, and I'll figure out how to hold the sheathing up there and screw it down. Yeah, there'll be no way I can lift that up with the plywood sheathing on it. But I got an idea. So I went and grabbed a 2x6. I'm going to tack it in place real quick. Now from the top of the subfloor down to that 2x6, just about 4 inches. So when I lay that sheathing up there, I have about a 4-inch overhang onto the sill plate like I do on the other side there. That 2x6 will hold it for me while I tack it in. One down, 3 more to go. So my drill doesn't have a clip to hang it on my belt, so I put a couple screws in there to hold it for me. Also pre-started 3 screws. Once I get this lifted up there, it'll be a lot easier to tack it in. All right, 1 more to go. Everything is looks good up here. Everything's flush with that top plate. None of this plywood is attached permanently. I've got a few screws in each board to hold it in place. So I went ahead and cut the bottom plate and the top plate for the back wall. All I'm going to need for that back wall is going to be 2 studs. I'll get one more cut, then we'll try to stand up the back wall. So this is going to be the back wall. I went ahead and nailed this horizontal piece in because that plywood ought to come up from the bottom about halfway, and then from halfway on up to the top. Well, I think that's about all I got for this afternoon. Well, I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to on this tiny shed build this afternoon, but that'll leave something for next time. Well, I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see y'all next time here at Dilladoo Homestead. Have a good evening, everybody.